The new US Congress is holding its first session today with the attention focused on the battle to succeed Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House of Representatives. Following the midterm elections last November, the Republicans now control the majority of the House, whilst President Joe Biden's Democrats continue to hold a narrow majority in the Senate. For the next 2 years, Joe Biden will have to deal with a divided government, making any legislative plans much harder to pass. He also would have to look on whilst Republicans investigate finances and business dealings of his son Hunter, a long-time target of his political opponents. But before all of that, the Republicans will have to agree on who will be the Speaker, a person that's second in line after the President. At the moment, the main candidate, Kevin McCarthy, is being held at ransom by a small group on the right of his party who are refusing to give him enough votes to clinch the job. John Leboutillier is an American political communist, pundit, and himself a former Republican member of the United States House of Representatives. He joins us now via Zoom. John, it is quite embarrassing for the Republican Party because the first vote didn't deliver enough numbers for McCarthy, and this is the first time in a century that the Speaker hasn't been appointed in the first vote.
That is correct. They're now in the middle of the second vote, and he has also fallen short in this vote, so there'll be at least a third vote. We kind of knew this was going to happen. McCarthy is very weak among the Republican conference. He has a certain level of support, but he can't get up to a majority level. So it looks unlikely that he will ever be the Speaker.
All right, we'll talk about him personally just now, but take us through the processes. This is a House that you know well. What does happen typically?
Well, normally, you know, before you get to this day who the Speaker is going to be. There are two parties, right? Republican and Democrat. Whichever party's in the majority picks their nominee, and they all support them. Not this time. This time, ever since November, it's been clear that 10 to 20 Republicans would not support McCarthy. Turned out it was 19 on the first ballot. Looks about the same on this one, which is ongoing right while we're speaking. So I don't have the final total, but he definitely already has lost enough votes. So meanwhile, the Democrats are all united behind Hakeem Jeffries. He got 212 votes. There are 212 Democrats. He got all of them. But he cannot become Speaker, Jeffries, the Democrat, unless something really weird happened and Republicans chose not to vote. So that's not going to happen. This is going to get dragged out maybe for days. And you just showed a tape, Peter, of President Biden. And there's nothing President Biden politically needs more than a Republican Party in total disarray. And that's how they're beginning their tenure in the majority in the House today.
All right, so what will happen now? Do they keep on voting until someone gets the nod? How many times before McCarthy says, okay, I give up, let's put another nominee through? Or does he carry on and wear down the 19 or so Republicans that are holding out?
Well, he said today that he already has the record for the longest speech ever given on the floor of the House. And he was not afraid to have the record for the most ballots, which is over 108 or something. I mean, he could stretch this thing out for weeks if he chose to. And I really do not know what's going to happen. I know there's been a lot of talk that if this continues to happen, Republicans will look for another candidate that would unite all of them. And Steve Scalise, the congressman from Louisiana, who's the nominee to be the majority leader, he is someone who's quite popular. He could be the consensus candidate, but not yet. It has to have, McCarthy has to fail more to where it becomes apparent that he's never going to make it.
These rebels, Why are they doing this? Why are they holding out? What is it about McCarthy they don't like?
Well, let me reveal without revealing a name. I got elected with a guy in 1980 who stayed there for 32 years after I lost and was gone. And he was in the House with McCarthy and told me last year that Kevin McCarthy, and this is from a Republican now, Kevin McCarthy is the single biggest liar I have ever met in politics, unquote. If that's the case from that congressman, most of these Republicans today know that. And I think your word counts a lot in politics. And if you're known as a liar, that's not really a good way to proceed.
All right. I mean, the House is in session. We've got the pictures up on our screen now. And you say this is a second vote and it could take days. Do they go home in between at least, or do they just carry on until it's done?
Well, I think they will go home, but it's undecided. How many more votes today? It's now my 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So a vote seems to be taking about an hour and a half. They could do several more today, or they could vote to take a break and go have a caucus. It's really unprecedented and unclear how it's going to go. We're watching, obviously, history in the making.
Are these rebels Donald Trump people? Who are they, apart from the qualities that you've described of McCarthy himself? It seems as if this is a grouping that's coalescing behind some philosophy or some idea.
Well, I'll tell you, in all honesty, almost all the Republicans in the House of Representatives are Trumpers. Not all of them, but almost all of them. And I don't think that's the issue here. I think the so-called rebels are far-right people, but they're also far-right people who are voting for Kevin McCarthy. So I'm not sure it's just philosophical. I think it's personal. I think they all have an axe to grind. And I tried to say this to you off the air before we went on, that what we're witnessing here with this vote is the division in the Republican Party as it crumbles as a major party in American politics. It is a party divided against itself at the presidential level, at the House level, at the local level. That it's a party that doesn't stand for any overarching philosophy anymore. It started out under Abe Lincoln, unified on one thing: to stop slavery. And then it became the anti-communist party and the anti-big government party. But it has fallen off of all of those. It's now a racist party very much, and it's a big spending party, and it really doesn't stand for anything.
Who is the leader of this party at this time, and can that person not try and bring the party together?
Well, obviously there's no leader in the House. The leader in the Senate is Mitch McConnell, and Mitch McConnell is very unpopular among House Republicans. It's so funny. The House and the Senate are different culture, different people. They don't really like each other very much. I think Donald Trump is still the leader of the Republican Party nationally, but he's in decline. Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, is on the way up a little bit. But I wouldn't say anybody is actually leading this party right now. It's in disarray.
What does this mean for the party? Because it must be embarrassing for Republican supporters, party faithful, to watch its party voting against itself.
I think this is very disheartening for Republican true believers around the country. They're trying to get a handle on what's going on, and they don't really know what to believe. And, you know, it's very, in our country now, you got talk radio and all, and they rail against the establishment. And it's easy to be against the establishment. That is what these 19 rebels have called Kevin McCarthy, part of the establishment. But Kevin McCarthy is a total Trumper, too. He's with Trump. Trump was with him. Is Trump the establishment? I guess maybe he is the establishment inside the Republican Party. It's really hard to figure out who's on whose side these days.
But McCarthy's been around the block a long time. Surely he's got a game plan, knowing that this was going to happen. What he'll give concessions, maybe. There must be something he can do.
Well, he has given every concession he can give as of today. I think the smarter move would be to not give these concessions and dig your heels in and say, look, I've got 214 votes or whatever he's got. I think he got 202 on the first one. And you need 218. So he's short. And I don't know how he's going to get those 18. He's given them what they've asked for. So it may be that it's an impossible race for him to win, and he's just going to have to wake up one of these days and realize he can't get there. And at that point, he's got to give it up, and it's a whole new race. And then a consensus candidate like a Scalise or Tom Cole is a name I would keep listening for from Oklahoma, very well-respected older congressman who would be a placeholder, but probably could unite the whole Republican Party for this term.
What are the consequences for the party? You're talking about implosion, destruction. It's not going to disappear, but what will happen to the Republican Party if this kind of thing continues in the manner we're seeing?
Well, first of all, they're going to help the Democrats because the Republicans in such disarray make the Democrats look good. They're going to make Biden look good. They're going to make Biden get reelected in 2024. They're going to help Democrats keep the Senate in 2024 and maybe even win the House back in 2024 because they're incapable of even running themselves. That is at risk here from day one. They can't pick a speaker. Therefore, they can't put people on committees. They can't decide what their agenda is. They're in deep trouble as a party if they don't get their act together pretty quickly.
John, we're going to have to leave it there, but interesting few hours or maybe a few days ahead, but we'll be watching carefully. Thanks so much for your insights. Always great having you.
Thank you, Peter. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you too. All right, that's a former Republican House of Representative John Leboutillier talking to us about the vote that's currently taking place in the House of Representatives. Kevin McCarthy, the majority party candidate, is just not getting enough votes from his own party. They've had the first vote and he didn't get enough, and this is the first time this has happened in a century. They're going through the second one now, and it's not looking great either.